Hey, what is going on, guys? Pineapple Sway here. So I'm going to be talking about my wish list for the next Batman Arkham game. In case you guys don't really know or haven't really heard, a new Batman Arkham game is currently under development and it is being made by Rocksteady Studios, where Rocksteady has promised that the game will go back to its single-player roots and basically going back to basics, what made the old Arkham games so great, story-based games and single-player. Now, with that being said, if you are new here, please consider liking and subscribing. And what game do you guys want to see that's next for the series? I would like to see Batman Arkham Beyond personally, but in all honesty, I'm just happy that we are getting a Batman game of some sort. Now, to start my wish list, something that I would like to see that is number one on my list is more detective-based gameplay. And what do I mean by this? Well, this is something we haven't really seen in the Batman Arkham series. We've seen a little bit of it with each introduction, with the most of it, I would say, in Batman Arkham Origins. But, you know, Batman is known as the world's greatest detective. And I would say that if this character is Bruce Wayne's Batman, you know, we should explore that aspect of being the world's greatest detective. However, you know, if it's Terry McGinnis taking up the mantle in this next game for Batman Beyond, you know, then I could totally see them not, you know, exploring so much of the detective work and, you know, sort of just relying more on this new Batman and Terry McGinnis trying to learn the basics of being the Batman and trying to be the best hero that he can be. Since if you guys have watched Batman Beyond, that's really, you know, the entire point of the show is that he's growing, he's learning, and, you know, he's really sloppy, he's really bad as Batman. But, you know, even in general, with Terry or Bruce being Batman for their next game, I think more aspects on the detective elements of Batman's character would be amazing and would do a lot to help the game and sort of provide more gameplay variety that I feel like over time, you know, would really help, especially, you know, for a new installment in the series. Although it is Arkham, you know, it could be a new, or I guess it would be considered a reboot. I really don't know. Would it be a reboot? I don't know. It's just, we'll obviously have to wait and see. But, you know, moving on though. Now, next on the list, this is kind of just a preference of mine. I'm not really sure if you guys would agree with me, but I would like to see a villain other than the Joker. For the Batman Arkham trilogy, or really if you count all of the games, even including Origins, every single game includes Joker. Batman Arkham Asylum includes Joker, Arkham City, Arkham Knight, Arkham Origins, even Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. You know, it has Joker. I think, you know, moving on to this new chapter of Batman, whether it's Terry, whether it's, you know, maybe a new chapter of Bruce that we haven't seen yet in the Arkham universe, I think the best step to kind of move forward and say that, hey, this is a new series, this is a new game, this is, you know, our new take on Batman, is abandoning the Joker and kind of just letting that thing, you know, be something of the past and just not really using his character at all. I think you can make an amazing game without using the Joker, you know. And honestly too, there's a lot of characters, a lot of villains out there in, you know, the Batman, you know, mythos that deserves spotlight, that deserves to be that main villain. You know, Scarecrow got, you know, to shine in Batman Arkham Knight, but it was slowly taken over by, you know, you guessed it, the Joker. And I think for the next game, just leaving Joker out would do wonders. I know a lot of people love Joker. Joker's a fan favorite, but I think Rocksteady can make a great game even without him. Even if, you know, obviously I would say mention him, maybe showcase him, but, you know, leave him on the bench for this game. Sort of like how in, you know, the Batman, the 2022 movie, the Joker was set to be in that movie, played by Barry Keoghan, but they cut him out of the movie because it didn't fit. Sort of something like that. You know, just leave him sidelined, maybe for a second game or a third game, but just leave him out of the picture. He is overused in my opinion, and it's just time that a new villain gets the spotlight. Do I have any preferences for a villain? No, not really, but I would take anyone that isn't the Joker at this point. Next on my wish list, and this is kind of another one of just my personal preference, but full-time access to the Batcave. You know, we are Batman after all. We are playing Batman. And something weird about, this series is that we've never really got to experience, being in a Batcave, working on different projects and detective work, solving the case with the clues and equipment that we have at the Batcave, and putting it all together to, really solve the missing piece, the missing puzzle. And when you watch, everything related to Batman movies, the cartoons, the animated series, Batman's always in the Batcave. He's always working. He's always looking and trying to, put these pieces together to track down these criminals. And something that's been missing from this Arkham trilogy, this Arkham series, is the Batcave. We've seen it, we've seen glimpses of it, but we've never really gotten to explore it or really use it, as something in our arsenal, being Batman. And I think for the next game, including the Batcave, would be really cool. It would be a nice place to explore. It doesn't have to be massive by all means, but maybe have a couple things in there that showcases Batman's history. Maybe a few references to the Arkham games if it is like a direct sequel. And just let us go there from time to time to maybe crack the big case. Maybe have some cool little segments included in the game to just sort of build that bridge and using that location. I think it would be really cool. And then, moving on to another thing that I think would be really awesome is giving us an aerial vehicle for traveling. I know in Batman Arkham Knight we had the Batmobile, but I think having, the Batpod would be, or I don't know. I don't think it's called a Batpod. That's kind of my mistake. But, having, an aerial vehicle to utilize to fly around the city maybe, because my hope for the next Batman Arkham game, I hope the map is pretty big. I would say, hopefully about 3 to 4 times the size of Metropolis from what we saw in Kill the Justice League. That's just a preference of mine, but having the Batmobile for the ground, and then having I know in The Dark Knight Rises what they called it, the Bat, just something to fly around the city of Gotham and sort of use it at our disposal to maybe get from point A to point B, or maybe we have to track something down in the air. It would be really cool, and I think it would add, once again, more gameplay elements to the game and just add a lot of fun having that, sort of secondary exploration just open to use, free to use, if that makes sense. And, lastly, so I guess this is top 5, but it's not really a top 5, but lastly, and, this is obviously speaking for the future of the game. We all know this game is coming out, and we can only assume that this game will get DLC. Rocksteady, please, if any developer is watching this, give us meaningful DLC. And what do I mean by that? Arkham Knight's DLC was kind of a dud. They were missions that would literally take about 3 to 4 minutes. The Batgirl DLC was amazing. I will give you guys credit for that. But all the other DLCs in Batman Arkham Knight just kind of felt out of place and pointless, in my opinion. I think a lot of people could agree on that. Suicide Squad's DLC. Do I need to say anything? I would honestly just let you guys just cook for a year or two working on a DLC that's, let's say, on scale of Harley Quinn's Revenge in Batman Arkham City, and then releasing it after the game's, content cycle. Or, like a year or two down the line. Since I believe Harley Quinn's Revenge, I think, came out a year after launch, if I'm not mistaken. Giving us an amazing DLC to cap off the game, would be absolutely incredible, but it's also not necessary either. I will say that, Marvel Spider-Man 2, didn't have DLC, and I still think that game is pretty good in its own right. It's not as good as the first game, but, it's still a fun game. Some story-based games don't need DLC, but, and, this game is still 3 to 4 years out, from what I've heard, from what I believe, and so yeah, that's really about it. That kind of concludes my wish list for the upcoming Batman Arkham game. I think at the end of the day, really, for this wish list, I think as fans, we just want this game to be good. We just want this game to be great. We want Rocksteady to go back to who they were in making these amazing story-based games. Anyways, though, this is Pineapple Sway. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know, what are 5 things you want to see for the next Batman Arkham game? Is there something you don't, agree that I said? Or, Is there something that I did say that you totally agree with, that you totally want for the next game? I don't know. Let me know. I love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I'm not going to take any more of your time, though. Peace out.